Welcome, everybody. It's a joy to have this time to share together, and I always look forward to Tuesday night to be able to spend this time with you. This morning, and just thinking about what we might talk about tonight, I know the topic was how we postpone our own enlightenment, but I thought I'd just jot down a few ways we do that in 15, 20 minutes this morning. And I came up with 20 ways pretty easily. So tonight's talk will be called 20 Ways We Postpone Our Own Enlightenment. So we have a lot to cover. I thought what we could do first is maybe just settle in a bit. It's always good to check in with the body. Let's do sort of a mental scan, top to bottom. Let's see if there's any place we're holding in resistance at all, tension, anything obvious that we can just relax a bit. Something I just learned in the last few weeks is the benefit of being aware of when we breathe to use our nose for that. That's what it's meant for. Our mouth is meant for eating, our nose is meant for breathing. And so we can just pay attention. If we have a tendency to breathe through our mouth, it tends to accentuate the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight system. And the nose tends to strengthen our parasympathetic nervous system. So affect how we respond to things, how we react to things in the world. So that's just a suggestion to modify what I usually say about not caring how you breathe, but just paying attention to it. So while just gently breathing through the nose in any particular pattern, but whatever's comfortable, we can just notice the flow of air in through our nose, movement of our diaphragm, movement of our belly. You can just sense into the body's being in the surroundings that you're in without worrying about the particulars, but just noticing it, the body's experiencing being in a space. You can also notice any physical sensations of the body, maybe the sense of sitting in the chair, maybe the sense of the temperature in the room on your skin. Here we have some fans on. You can feel the air moving. I'd also notice that there are thoughts occurring if they are. And there's no need to manage those thoughts, change them, improve them, oppose them, like them, dislike them. We don't, for these moments, we don't really have to take a position with regard to the thoughts at all. We can just notice that they are an arising that we can be aware of. Just like we can be aware of the breath, the sensation of being in the room. And if we just withdraw our fascination with the content of the thought, and just shift our attention more to the awareness itself rather than the content of that awareness. You can become just more curious about what that awareness itself is prior to the content that may show up at any moment, whether it be one of our 5 physical senses, whether the sensation of thinking or feeling. You can just come back to that simple sense of being present in this moment without any desire for it to be different. The mind may want it to be different. The mind may be bored. The mind may be sleepy. The mind might be thinking about something totally other than just being here. But all of that, in any event, is still happening within this simple, spacious field of awareness. So we can just come back to that if we get lost in thought, lost in a memory, lost in a thought about the future, lost in an idea. And then we notice that, we can just come back to this simple presence of being that's not dependent on any content. It's not dependent in any way on having the right experience, right thought, right feeling even. It's just what we are. So we can just step back and notice that is already present without having to create anything. It's just a simple noticing, a noticing of what's noticing, a noticing of the awareness of whatever arises in that field, thought, feeling, memory, hope, fear, dream, regret, whatever. Okay, everybody here? All right, I thought, like I say, we have 20 ways we can postpone our own enlightenment. So we'll go pretty quickly with these, well, since there's 20 of them. And if you'll forgive me for reading them so I can remember them in sequence. Okay, these aren't in any particular order or order of importance or sequence or anything. It's just how they came to mind. Okay, the first one is believing in this whole spectrum of unworthiness and worthiness. We talked about this last Tuesday night in terms of trying to do something in order to feel worthy about ourselves. And the corollary there is I have to feel worthy. I can't believe that me as an unworthy person would be eligible for this awakening, whatever that may be. So therefore, I have to do something to get myself into the field where I feel good about myself, feel worthy about myself, and then maybe, probably not, but maybe then I'll be eligible for enlightenment. So the assumption there is that it has something to do with what we do rather than what we are. And that's a false assumption. It doesn't have anything to do with what we do. It has to do with recognizing what we are, what we've always been, what we are unavoidably. Just coming back to that simple recognition. much like we did at just the introductory um, short meditation inquiry into our nature. Okay, so this whole effort to make myself worthy of enlightenment is, first of all, it's a postponement. It's pushing it into the future when hopefully I'll be worthy enough for it. And second, it's based on a belief that that's what's required, um, which isn't true. Okay, second one, believing that awakening is an experience. This is probably generated by hearing lots of stories about other people's awakening experience. So that's easy to describe. I mean, it can be, mind-blowing, certain images, cosmic consciousness, mind-blowing bliss. We've read stories, we can hear other people's stories about that. That's not actually awakening. It's the fireworks that can accompany awakening. The awakening itself is a simple recognition of what we are, what we always have been. That can be such a relief that the expression in that moment might be mind-blowing bliss, fireworks of all kinds, laughing, just roaring belly laughter, tears rolling down our face. That may all happen. The experience itself isn't actually that important. However that experience shows up, it can be very quiet. It can be um, as simple as, wow, I would have never guessed that's what it is. It's there, it's been there all along. Why, how could I have missed it all these years? It can be literally that simple, and it's equally valid to mind-blowing bliss. We may, if we had a choice, we'd say, I want the bliss, but it's actually not that, well, it's not in any way significant. What's significant is what is recognized. One of the challenges of having a, fireworks kind of awakening is that it's very easy to misinterpret and, um, you know, essentially keep the bathwater and throw out the baby. The baby being that recognition of what we truly are. So awakening is not an experience. If we're looking for the experience, um, we can easily be deceived, or we can even have the awakening experience and misinterpret what it is. If we believe that it's an experience, it's not. It's what is present for the experience. It's that within which all experiences happen. All experiences are impermanent. All experiences have an origin, a lifespan, passing back into, let's say, into their source. Even the most profound awakening experience, same. It might linger a bit longer, maybe months, but it too will fade back into that source. What remains, if we're paying attention, and if we really understand what has happened at that moment of awakening, it is the recognition that all experiences come and go. All experiences arise within awareness and are experienced within awareness and drop back into the source. Okay. We can postpone our awakening by assigning the role of judge and jury to our mind, where we believe that, whatever happens, whatever experiences may come and go, whatever life is showing us, I'll be the judge of whether that's true or not. I'll be the judge of whether that's valid or not, whether that's worthy of further investigation. So by imagining that our mind is capable of distinguishing between what's true and what's not is assigning to the mind a task that it's just not the right tool for, right? The mind is composed of just a series of thoughts. I know it does other things as well, but for this purpose, what we're talking about is just this sort of relentless freight train of thoughts and concepts and ideas and beliefs and memories and hopes and dreams and fears. And all of that are objects within consciousness. So objects within consciousness are incapable of knowing what is witnessing them. They're objects within consciousness. Thoughts are objects within consciousness. Even spiritual thoughts are objects within consciousness. So depending on the mind to be the final decider of what's been realized, what's true, what path to follow, all of that is beyond the ability of the mind to do that. What the mind can do is gain some clarity about what's not true. It has usefulness there. It can see that, well, what I am can't be a thought because thoughts come and go. And whatever I am, whatever that is, isn't can't be subject to comings and goings. It's what is notices everything, even the comings and goings. So it has a stability in that sense. So the mind isn't just simply isn't the right tool to be the judge of our own enlightenment or even imagining what that could be. It's just not capable of that. Okay, being afraid of fear. Okay, being afraid of fear will postpone our enlightenment. All fear is fundamentally, when we go deep enough into it, is a fear of our own non-existence. Non-existence may be felt as just a, psychological slap in the face, but it's projected as a diminishment of who I am or who I think I am, and that is leading me towards utter, life in the gutter and utter non-existence. If people continue to say what this person just said about me, that's the direction. So that fear has to do with my self-image and preserving it. And so the fear that arises around that is what protects us from investigating how we're choosing to identify ourselves. If we use fear not to look in the direction of what is challenging us, what we don't want to look at, then that area of our life is sort of like the monster under the bed that we never want to look at. The way to get rid of the monster is actually look under the bed and see what's actually there. If we, just try to close our eyes and pretend that the monster's not there or do something to distract ourselves, we enhance the reality of the monster under the bed. That part of our lives where we're reluctant to look at. So fear gives us some indication of the areas where we are holding on. It may, depending on if there's some trauma-based fear there, it's an area to go gently with. But the trajectory needs to be the willingness to look more and more deeply. And sometimes fear is the pointer to what areas need to be looked at. It doesn't have to be done all at once, we can take our time with it, but we also don't want to run away from it. Running away from fear enhances the reality, the enormity, apparently, of that fear, whatever that fear is based on. So, and a lot of times as we get closer to awakening, that fear can actually be amped up because everything that we believed we were is at risk. It's not at a physical risk, right? But what's at risk is the disillusionment of a belief in what we thought we were. And what we thought we were might be holding on really tight. Our mind is telling us you can't go there. It is, your demise is down that road. And that's true. It's not a physical demise. It's the demise of an imaginary belief in who we thought we were. That's what gets transcended. That's what gets seen through. Okay, so fear is often a pointer. Oh, that's an area of investigation, profitable investigation. Okay, another way we postpone our enlightenment is thinking that feeling good is an indicator of our progress. So this is, we had just finished talking about the belief in the thoughts in our head. Now we're talking about the belief in our feelings. If we just feel good, we must be on the right path. If we just feel happier, but we can really look to see what that sense of happiness is really based on. If it's based on outside events, things going my way, it's a nice day, I just had a good meal, I just spent an evening with friends, I'm walking my dog and it's a beautiful day, whatever, if there's a basis for our happiness, then that's not true happiness. It's pleasant, sure, but true happiness isn't dependent on external circumstances. It's a function of what we are. So if we're just looking to feel good, there's lots of things we can do to feel good. Those first few spoonfuls of ice cream feel great, maybe a few glasses of wine also. There's lots of things that we can do to feel good that aren't necessarily any indication at all of progress towards actually seeing what we are. And in fact, it's puzzling because it can feel good for a while as we begin to realize that there may be a resolution to this search, to this inquiry, to this maybe suffering. There may be a resolution to all of that. This is good news. This can feel good. This can carry us for a ways. But as we get into it deeper, it may be more challenging than that. So it's not a question of feeling better and better and better and better, and one day I'll feel so good, I'm enlightened. It doesn't work that way. It's much more a process of subtraction than addition. It's a process of seeing through beliefs that we held dearly that we find out aren't actually true. It's largely an undoing of things that we believe were true about ourselves, about the world, about other people, about our place in the world. So it doesn't have anything to, our feelings are not a good indicator of how we're progressing. What is a good indicator is how sincere are we in the exploration of things that cause us difficulty. that has real value. Okay, any way we are looking for truth outside of ourselves is, well, it's fruitless because it doesn't exist out there, right? Things out in the world might be helpful in terms of sort of getting us in the right direction, getting us in the ballpark. You know, maybe reading a book, listening to, someone talk about it. Having experiences out in the world with other people, seeing how the world works. All of that's good information that we may later use to understand what we're actually sensing. But ultimately, it is found here. It's not found up in the heavens. It's not found in India, not in the US. It's not found on top of a mountain and not at sea level. It's not, not found on a pretty day and not on a rainy day. It's what we are. So when we finally turn around and begin looking within, that's when the real that's when you're on the home stretch, right? As long as we're looking for it outside, something out there to fulfill me, to make me happy, to complete me, some idea out there, some other person that will fulfill me in a relationship, um, some experience that's so good that it will sort of resolve everything. I'll be happy for the rest of my life if only I have this particular experience. Maybe sunset on the rim of the Grand Canyon with my lover and a glass of wine, and then my life, I'll be happy thereafter. No, you won't. You'll remember it as a really pleasant experience, and you'll look for some other experience to be even more pleasant. As long as we're looking outside, there's no end to it. When we turn around and actually look within, then we're looking in the right direction. And by looking within, I don't mean looking at our thoughts. I don't mean psychology. I don't even mean looking at our feelings. Simply because when we notice our thoughts, whatever they happen to be, or notice our feelings, whatever they happen to be, those are still objects within awareness. It's the awareness that's the important part. So by looking at within, I really mean looking at that awareness directly and beginning to really inquire what that awareness is, and could it be what I am, really, really, truly, not just as a concept, but actually as a direct, full body experience. Okay, another way we can postpone our awakening is trying to compile the right set of concepts, right? Trying to arrange our ideas and beliefs and dogmas and spiritual practices and just in the right balance, and so that it feels like a sustainable package, a defensible package, something that I could take all the way to my grave and be satisfied with. So we can spend a lot of time trying to put that, package together, sort of improving it here and there, modifying an idea, adding, some ideas for the next book, just sort of putting it all together. The problem is it's not a concept. It's not a belief, it's not a dogma, it's not a set of beliefs, it's not a set of practices. All of those things might be helpful at a certain point along the way to get us, sort of a little bit more in the vicinity, sort of a little bit more grace prone, get us in the vicinity of being available to grace. But the concepts themselves are empty of ultimate truth. Any concept. And the reason I can say that is all concepts are less than reality. All concepts are about reality. All concepts try to summarize, explain, simplify reality, but they're never reality itself. That's what poets try to do. I mean, they try to convey a sense of the reality that they're experiencing in a way that hopefully conveys something to the reader. But, as hard as they try, it can convey a lot, but it's never the same as actually having that precise experience yourself. Concept is always less than reality. So, that's why Lao Tzu can say that the truth cannot be spoken, because any speech is a series of words, which are all concepts. The combination of the words is also a concept. The concept is always less than the reality. Okay. You can also postpone awakening by imagining that a guru will do the heavy lifting for you. A skilled guru, a authentic teacher guru, can be helpful by suggesting a direction to look. But you have to do the looking yourself. Sometimes gurus have powers, right? They have cities. They have the ability to, raise your energy level. They may have the ability to induce visions. They may have the ability to, create a sense of ecstasy or openness, or all beautiful. They may even be instructive in some way. Not permanent, though, right? Because it is the next experience within the field of a consciousness. The consciousness is already present in everyone. There's not a lack there, right? Doesn't have to be improved upon. Has to be recognized. So like I say, a guru can be helpful in terms of pointing a direction, saying, look down this path, this is fruitful. That path, not so much. You can spend a lot of years, maybe decades, maybe the rest of your life looking down that road, and it will not bear fruit. So an authentic teacher can save you time by recommending a direction to look. But he can't do it for you. She can't do it for you. Okay. It's fine to have respect for a teacher in that sense. But you don't want to abdicate your personal responsibility, to take responsibility for yourself in your own discovery of what you are already in reality. All right. You can also postpone awakening by believing that it is a high state. It's not. I mean, it may feel like that at first. It may feel like that because it's such a relief. Um, it's sort of like, if you were carrying a heavy backpack that you forgot you were carrying, and you're carrying it, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 years, and then you finally take it off. It's like, wow, I feel great. But it's a function of relief. It'll settle down after a while, um, but it may feel ecstatic, blissful. It may feel like that for a while. That's true, but it's not a high state. Ultimately, it is a natural state. It's what we actually are already. When we discover that, when we discover the relief of it, when we discover that we don't have to um, be protective of our self-image, where we don't have to always be worried about what the other person thinks or says about us, when we don't have to be so anxious about the future, what that will bring, when we can recognize that life can be trusted. Um, all of the energy that we had spent in the past becomes available. That feels good. It enlivens us, right? But it's not a high state. It's not an elevated state. And one of the things that we recognize is that um, that which we are, everyone else is already also. So it doesn't even elevate us in comparison to other people. We just actually lose our interest in comparing ourselves with other people because it just doesn't make sense anymore. And in fact, it's not even it's not even a state at all. A state just means that in this moment, my mind, my feelings feel this particular way. Next moment, next hour, they may feel another way. It's a different state and then a different state. Um, so the awakeness isn't a state, what is present for whatever state arises. Okay, we can also postpone our enlightenment by assuming that it is based on merit. Seems logical, right? You know, a better person is going to be allowed to cut in ahead of the line. If we're not, if we've done some things that, weren't really all that in alignment with what we knew to be true, we're going to be at the back of the line. I mean, it seems reasonable, right? It seems like a human-based assessment of how this works. I'll just work on my merit. Like a Boy Scout, a merit badge. I'll feed the poor. I'll help the hungry. I'll donate some money to some worthy cause. All of that's fine. I mean, I'm happy that people do that. If we're doing it to improve our merit so that we get the ultimate payoff of enlightenment, we're just paying for the entry fee. Conscious merit isn't really merit at all. Right? If we're doing it to gain something, we're in a business deal, right? So merit, yes, maybe we've done some admirable things in our life. Wonderful, great. It's probably good for the planet. But if we believe that somehow we've elevated ourselves to a state of worthiness as a result of doing that, we're wholeheartedly locked into an ego game. If we do things just out of generosity, love, enjoyment, that's a whole different story. I mean, that's a beautiful movement. to see a need to move in that direction without any thought of self-gain. That's beautiful. Okay? Doesn't necessarily lead to enlightenment, but it's still a beautiful gesture, right? Enlightenment is not merit-based, period. In other words, we can't earn it. And the reason that we can't earn it is because we are it. Right? We can't earn what we already are. If we believe that we need to earn what we already are, we are looking in the wrong direction. We're looking outside at something that's already present here. As long as we deny what's here and are looking for it outside, we'll never find it. As long as we think that merit is required, we feel like merit is earned by something we do out in the world, we are still looking outside and ignoring what's already present here already. Okay, imagining that you can think your way there. Okay, if I just think harder, get my thoughts in order. Again, just think my way there. Conquer, storm the gates of heaven by my rational mind. But it doesn't work. The rational mind can be helpful in seeing what we are not. That it can be used for. It can see that, wait a minute, thoughts are impermanent. They come and go. I've changed them all the time. Opinions, ideas, beliefs, all of those subject to change, impermanent, not always present. Therefore, I couldn't be that. Right? Whatever I am can't be subject to just transitory states. If it were, it would be like saying that for my heart to beat, I have to pay attention to it all the time. And we couldn't do that. I mean, we'd be dead before nightfall. But it's not subject to our remembering it. If we had to remember to breathe, we'd be in the same boat. If we had to remember a particular thought to remain in existence, we would fail miserably and quickly. The fact that we survive transitory thoughts, transitory states, transitory feelings means that whatever we are essentially is not any of those things. Make sense? Okay. Lack of courage to examine anything. Right? If we try to keep something suppressed that we know is there, that we know is eating at us, and that we are reluctant to look at because we're concerned about what can of worms it's going to open up, that tends to build in intensity. We have to be willing to look, sort of, lift the hood up and look underneath to see what's actually there. That is the path. That willingness, that courage, that curiosity to really see what's there. That has power. When we are reluctant to look at something that we know is there, that we know is consuming our psychic energy, it is an admission of sorts that what that is too big for me to deal with. It's bigger than me. But it's not. It is occurring within which that which you are. Okay. What diminishes that, whatever it is, that idea, that belief, that fear, that concern, that regret, that shame, whatever it is our reluctance to look at it that builds up that energy. And what reverses it is our willingness to look at it objectively, without self-judgment. That's the key. Just see it for what it is. The light of daylight is purifying. It's like sunlight is disinfecting, right? Consciousness is purifying. Consciousness without self-judgment. Okay. You can also postpone enlightenment by believing that, well, it'll happen sometime in the future. I mean, this is obvious, right? The future will never arrive. It will always be now. The only time you ever have the possibility of waking up to who you are is therefore now. Now, this moment is absolutely as good as, well, infinitely better than any future moment, just because it is real, it's here, it's now, there's a possibility. We have this moment of awareness, aliveness, hopefully curiosity in this moment to really direct our attention in this moment to what we actually are. Imagining that it'll happen in some future moment, whenever, God sort of gets around to it, I don't want to push anything. I'll just wait and see what happens. Yeah. It's not being greedy for the experience. It's just like, I really want to know. I sincerely want to know what I am. I want to know what's living this life. Show me whatever needs to be shown so that I can see what I am now. It's the now that has the power, because it's real. The future is imaginary. It won't ever happen. It'll always be now. Okay. Okay, we can postpone our awakening by presuming that it depends on cleaning up our act first, right? We have to sort of purify ourselves. Again, we're back in the worthiness game. So one of the things that Jesus said, it just said simply, he met somebody, seemed to be some interest there, just said, come follow me. He didn't ask for a resume, he didn't, there weren't any prerequisites. It wasn't a test. He didn't say, clean up your act first and then have your people talk to my people. It's just like, come follow me. No prerequisites. So it's good for the body to sort of eat better and have some respect for the body and appreciation for it. That's wonderful. Do vegetarians have a faster track to awakening than non-vegetarians? Do you know that's true? How about if you, I don't know, drink wine? How about if you swear? How about if you, I don't know, go to the movies sometimes? How about, Any self-judgment about that is, um, sort of feeling badly about who I am. It sort of feels like, I don't have any control over my behavior, and therefore I'm not worthy again. We can just see that that's all these conditioned responses. Sure, I'm not saying at all that it's okay just to be careless about our actions, our bodies, how we feed them. Not at all. Okay, but I'm also not saying that it's a prerequisite for awakening. There are people that have awakened out of um, alcoholic stupors. There have been people that awakened out of suicidal depression. There have been people that have awakened um, walking across the street. There is no prerequisite. It's not a matter of purity. It's not a matter of earning our way there. Not a matter of um, earning what we already are. Okay. Um, okay, I talked about this one a little bit in my book, but it's thinking that you know what awakening is, what it'll look like. Um, and until the awakeness actually occurs to you, there's no way you will know what it looks like. No, nobody ever wakes up and says, "Yeah, well, that's pretty much what I thought it was going to be." It doesn't happen that way. It's a surprise. I mean, that's what the belly laughter is often about. It's like, the hilarity of having missed what was closer than close my entire life. I may have spent decades looking for it, and it was there all the time. That's the hilarity of it. So any belief that it will look like anything in particular, that I'll have this particular experience, that I will feel a particular way, that my life will be happy ever after, whatever idea that we have about it will be incorrect. It's much better to acknowledge that we don't know and um, go in a direction that seems to be pulling us without an imagined goal. The goal will be imaginary, it can't be otherwise. The goal will be imagined by our mind, which isn't capable of recognizing. So the mind isn't capable of finding awakeness. The mind will do everything to keep you from finding awakeness. Your mind may convince you that, no, I'm really on board for this. But when you get closer, you will notice that there is an attraction and there's a repulsion. It's good to know that. It's good not to be discouraged by that, or not to ignore what it is that is repulsing you from recognizing what you are. It's the mind desperately wanting to stay in control. Okay. Spiritual experiences are evidence of my progress. No, they're not. They're spiritual experiences. Spiritual experiences are like, they may be wonderful, instructive, transformational, etc., but they have the characteristic in common with all other experiences, and that is that they're impermanent. They come, hang around for a while, and go. The awakeness is what's present for spiritual experiences and every other experience. The awakeness is present for the mind-blowing bliss, and it's present for when you're brushing your teeth in the morning. Same awareness. The recognition of the primacy of that awareness is what's important. Okay. I need to believe in God. Again, this journey is not about belief. Belief in God, if it is something that culturally or through religion that you grow up, is something that's meaningful to you, wonderful. Um, you know, it's beautiful to pray to that, to be inspired by that. Beautiful. But it's important to understand the difference between belief and recognition. This whole journey isn't about compiling the right set of beliefs, not even the belief in the divine. It's about finding what's true. And the journey, to be really open about that, to be willing and courageous enough to go in that direction fully. If we haven't yet experienced that divine presence, or if it's just a belief for or against, or not knowing, the not knowing is probably preferable. Because if we're talking about belief, we're talking about a presumption of what might be true, and what we are looking for is what's actually true. Might turn out that we discover, yes, God is present in everything. Beautiful. But we have to be also willing to allow the possibility that I'll go deeper and deeper into this and find out that the universe is a mindless material happenstance. Possible, right? If we're really open to discovering the truth, we have to be open to all possible eventualities. What's true is true. It's not dependent on our belief in it or not. So if we're on a journey to actually discover what's true, and we haven't yet had a particular experience, not knowing is well, if it's true, I'd go with that one. Okay, I have to undo my conditioning first. We just have a few more minutes here and a few more. We're on number 18 here. I have to undo all my conditioning first. Well, this is in the same category as self-improvement, right? I have to fix myself to be eligible for awakening. Trying to undo your conditioning is, well, that would be at least a lifelong journey, right? You probably have enough left over for a few more lifetimes. So that's not really a helpful strategy. What's helpful is to see that the conditioning, that this body mind is conditioned, some useful, some not so. Just recognize, yes, that's true, and what I am is not my body mind. Just see that it just relieves our whole urgency about fixing our conditioning. Once we've recognized what we actually are, seeing through our conditioning, letting go some of the rough spots, that actually becomes easier because it doesn't feel so personal. It can sort of be viewed as from a distance. It's like the difference between a surgeon operating on a patient who they don't really know, or a surgeon, operating on their own leg. There's a difference, right? So if we understand from the point of awareness that that's what we truly are, and we look back at our conditioning, we can see it, allow it to come to the light of day. It'll tend to dissipate over time. So it's not that it persists forever. it smooths out after a while. But we don't get to awakening by undoing our conditioning, because that is an egoic effort, right? I want to undo my conditioning. Why? I want to get enlightened. Why? Because I'll feel good and other people will love me. It's a total ego experience. Okay, two more. Holding on too tightly. What I mean by that is holding on to some belief or behavior, even when we know better, we can say, well, I had this experience and it felt true at the time, but I'm not sure it's really, really, really truer than sort of my old behavior, and I'll just drop back into how I've always been and hope for the right experience to come along, the right enlightenment. As we go along, we learn, and by learning, I mean being willing to let go of false beliefs. Okay, that's the real learning right there. And finally, the willingness not to know. Okay, we just talked about that a little bit, but not knowing, especially if we don't actually know, not knowing at least is a solid place to start from. Belief is not. Belief is based on hope and fear. Not knowing is courageous in a way. It's opening, right? Opening to the possibilities. You can just feel into that, right? If you say, no, I know so-and-so is this kind of person. You sort of put the other person into a box. We're not really open to, there may be a deeper way of being. We may have only seen a sliver of that person. But if we say, well, I may have spent some time with that person, but, there's still a lot to see. I don't really know the entirety of that person. We're open, right? And turn that around to ourselves. If we keep saying, I know I'm this, I'm like that, I'm lazy, I'm anxious, I eat too much, I don't exercise enough. If we insist on all of these labels being true, then we've sort of put ourselves into a box. But if we say that, yeah, in the past there have been these tendencies, I don't know if they'll continue or not. They seem to have some energy behind them, but I don't actually know. I don't actually know what tomorrow will look like. I don't know what attitudes I may have tomorrow, but I'm open to whatever life has to show me. I'm willing to take, some steps into the not knowing. Sort of courageous, willing, curious. Like I wonder what that actually is. Right? Just sort of stepping into the unknown. But it's true, right? We don't actually know. We don't know what will happen tomorrow. So we can just sort of loosen our grip a little bit. And in that way become more open to whatever life has to show us. Life will show us. Life is, well, the two best teachers are your own inner teacher and life. Those are the two best teachers by far. So I would really trust both of those to show you the next thing, the next way we can sort of undo a false belief and go with that. And then the next step, and then the next. Okay, I hope that's been of some value. It was fun putting that list together. We could probably double the size of that list pretty easily, but those are some really common ways that we manage to postpone our own enlightenment, believing that it couldn't happen to me, not the way I am now, certainly not. Okay, another belief, right? So we can just, again, relax into not knowing. I don't know. I don't know what's required, but I'm willing. I'm willing to take that next step. Ultimately, we can't awaken ourselves. The mind, the mind will only resist relinquishing its apparent control. So we can't do it ourselves. What we can do it is maneuver ourselves into the vicinity of awakening. The awakening, how that presents itself will be unique to you, and it will have the sense of coming, um, have the sense of coming from the other side. That's not actually true, but it has the sense of that. But it's not something that we can do out of our own volition. Any volition in that sense is ego driven and takes us farther away. At some point, it's just being available, even for like a second, to be totally available without any conditions. Doesn't take long. So, all right, we have little time left. Anyone has any questions or things that they'd like to talk about? Uh, okay, two questions actually. The first question is, can enlightenment be attained and then sort of go away or be reduced? Enlightenment's actually not an attainment. That's maybe not how you meant the question. But enlightenment itself, it's important to know that it's not an attainment. It's not becoming something that we're not already. It's recognizing what we already are. So the rest of the question is, and then sort of go away or be reduced. Enlightenment doesn't go away, it's what you are already. So it doesn't come and go. It is the recognition of it may come and go. So we may recognize it, and then um, what often happens is the mind wants to come back into control and say, "Wow, look what happened. How did I do that? How can I do it again? How can I sustain it?" Okay. All the ways the mind wants to come back into being the one in charge. Okay. A really useful piece of advice if you have that awakening experience, this is going to sound totally counterintuitive. If you have that awakening experience, don't try to hang on to it. The reason I say that is it can't go anywhere. The very attempt to hang on to it, to sustain it, to perpetuate it, is a grasping, and what grasp is ego. So the enlightenment can't go anywhere, but the ego can come back in. The ego can come back in and claim it as an experience. So all we can do, it's good to know that the ego will try to do that. And all we can do is notice the attempt of the ego to regain control. Make it into a story, want to tell our friends, create a self-elevating self-image of ourselves, all of that ego-driven. Okay, so the enlightenment, well, it's present already. What we're talking about is just the recognition of it. And so there can be a sense after awakening of a receding, and then maybe we see it again. And then we ask, well, how did I do that? And then we're back to receding again, right? It's important to just see that that consciousness can't go anywhere. Our mind can seemingly pull us away from it, but even when the mind is pulling us away from it, that awareness is present for that mental effort. We may be stuck in the mental effort, but consciousness is still present. So if we have the presence to just see, oh, there's mind pulling me back there, I'm pulled back into apparent contraction. If I get freaked out by that, like, oh my gosh, I've lost my awakening, that solidifies our, we're back into fear and trying to attain and regret of our loss and all these other mental activities. If we just see, okay, there's the content of our consciousness being pulled into contraction, not really a problem. It might be, our mind might think, well, that's not as pleasant as that awakeness, full-blown awakeness that I was just experiencing. Okay, but from the point of view of awakeness, it's not a problem. Not only not a problem, it's not even differentiated. Sometimes expansive, sometimes contracted. Not a problem. When we relax about that, that movement is much, much more flexible. Okay, there's another question relating to your opening statement about breathing through the nose. A recent book called Breath by James Nestor goes into that a great deal about how important it is for your health. Yeah, it seems to make a lot of sense. There's the ability in your nasal cavity as you breathe in to produce nitric oxide, which relaxes your circulatory system. It informs your body that it's okay to relax. When we're being chased by a tiger, we're out of breath, breathing through our mouth. So that when we do that, we're sort of reminding the body that we're in dangerous territory. So try it out, see what it feels like. Okay, another question from the chat. If I'm not consciously awake, does that mean I've never been available for even one moment? No, we're available lots of times every day. We just ignore them, right? Because we're fascinated with the content, mostly of our mind and our external experiences. So that's what we're paying attention to. When there's just a gap in that, let's say, thought process, and then the thought process starts up again. In that gap, you were present. You were fully present. But it doesn't impress us that much because there was no content in that moment. You could say it was pure awareness in that moment, even if it was for a split second. It happens when we're surprised. Happens when we hear a really good joke that we weren't expecting a punchline at all. It just sort of shocks the mind for a moment, and the result is it feels so good that the laughter comes out. Or we're startled by something. We're walking down a path at dusk, and something just rustles in the bushes right next to us. We're just in that moment, everything stops, just for a split second, and then it might be, oh, I wonder what that is. It might be a rabbit. All of those moments are informative that there is awareness present in the absence of content. That is really instructive, right? Because it tells us something about who we are. What it does tell us is that who we are, since it can't come and go, It's not dependent on impermanent arisings and fallings away. And since it's permanent, that if it remains in the absence of thought, that what we truly are isn't dependent on a thought, in any thought. That saves a lot of time right there, where we're not looking to thought to find truth. Any thought, any idea, any belief, it's not found there. Might be a helpful pointer, sure, but the truth itself is not found in thought. So the question is, if I'm not consciously awake, um, so there's awakeness already present, but we just maybe haven't yet realized what that is, because our attention is outward. It's on things, on the content of our mind. So it's just a question of relaxing a bit and seeing what is always present prior to thought, prior to experience.